Welcome to the session, Filling Processing Needs and Building Lasting Agricultural Infrastructure at the Pennsylvania Hemp Summit. General housekeeping, please remain muted during this session. We're going to give each presenter individual time to present. If you have questions, please submit them via the chat feature at the bottom of the screen. Following all the presentations, we will then address your questions in order. We're going to ask each moderator to introduce themselves and, so my name is Delong. I work for Pasa Sustainable Agriculture. I am the education director in the eastern region of the state. My partner and I have a small diversified vegetable farm in Chester County. I've done some programming around hemp. Very happy to be here today with this panel. I think at this point, I'm just going to introduce our first panelist. Our first panelist is Chris Lloyd. He's the CEO of Disability Options Network, DON. Chris is an entrepreneur, a disability rights activist, a retired naval veteran, and he has built a group of companies beginning in 2002 with the nonprofit Disability Options Network. DON is headquartered in Lawrence County, where it is the second largest employer. DON operates in 9 Pennsylvania counties and employs 1,400 people, many with disabilities or who face barriers to employment. Agricultural economic opportunity for Pennsylvania farmers through large-scale industrial hemp fiber processing is the next important initiative in DON's continuing work. Chris, I hand the floor to you, and thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you. My name is Chris Lloyd. I am the president and CEO of a DAWN group of companies. Our first company was Disability Options Network. It is a nonprofit, federally funded 501c3. Apparently, we're having technical difficulty. We can't advance our presentation. We started as a group of civil rights advocates, and we were a member of a national advocacy organization called ADAPT. We used to go to Washington, D.C. At least once a year, sometimes twice. And what we did was we provided civil disobedience to encourage government to change the way in which they view people with disabilities. We were transitioning people from nursing homes. So at the time, our focus was on independent living and allowing people a choice rather than to be institutionalized or let that money follow them and stay in the community. And that's how we started. We had one grant at the time from the Department of Education, and it was for we were the 18th Center for Independent Living in Pennsylvania. Since then, we've obtained another grant to be a center for independent living that serves Allegheny, Armstrong, and Westmoreland counties. So now we have actually 2 grant-funded organizations under Disability Options Network. And yet, we thought it was still not enough income to really do what we were supposed to do. So we created Dawn Services, and Dawn Services is a fee-for-service organization that provides direct care to serve to people with disabilities in their homes. Moved a lot of people out of nursing homes and put them in their own homes. And then we found out, we started to have the revenue to do what we were supposed to do. We found out that there wasn't enough housing stock that people with disabilities could actually move into other than public housing or projects. So we created Dawn Enterprise, and out of that company, what we do is we build accessible homes. We do that in conjunction with an FHL bank, a federal home loan bank grant, and there's some, actually Department of Agriculture is given us, I think we got 90% of the funds available in Pennsylvania to provide I don't want to say home modifications, but to make the houses in disrepair better. And I think we got like 90% of the funds that were available in Pennsylvania, they gave to us right here in Lawrence County. And we're allowed to use those in rural areas. We can't use them in the city of Newcastle, but the outlying areas were eligible for it. We got a picture of a couple of houses up there that the one on the left side of the picture is the house on the right side of the picture, after we rehabbed it, it has 2 accessible entrances. That's my favorite little house, and it's only a 1-bedroom, and we intended to use it as a nursing home, transition home, at least move somebody out of a nursing home, get them services, get them a place to live until we could find them someplace that would be permanent. The second home up there it has nothing to do with the picture, by the way, but we have an employee with a disability who'd never been a homeowner before. So I presented her with 3 different plans, and I told her I would build the house and I subsidize it for her. And she decided to go ahead with the process. So we built her an accessible home. Then they started I never wanted to be a landlord. I kind of refused to do that. They've kind of forced me to. The building in the picture to the right, or is that the next slide?
That's the next slide.
That was where our first office was, and it was actually from the very first window on the ground floor all the way to the back. That was our first office in that building. And now we own the building. I had called the owner, he had it vacated, he was retiring, and tried to sell it on an auction, and it didn't sell for whatever reason. It's always been a nice building. So I called him, I said, you know what, why don't you give it to me? Why don't you donate it to me? And he said, well, and he called me back a couple weeks later. He said, Chris, I can't just give it to you, but I'll let you have it for 150 grand. And it's a 77,000 square foot building. And so far we have the PA Career Link has rented the space that I was initially in. It's a little over 10,000 square feet. On the second floor, we have the Learning Center. So we have 2 state contracts, and then we have 2 businesses of our own in there. One is a Dawn Insurance Agency, and then we have a Dawn Recovery Services, which is a Suboxone clinic. And we also do drug testing, and we're beginning the COVID testing. So that was Dawn Enterprise, and we're hoping, and we just recently purchased 5 more buildings. We built 11, we're building 12 homes. I think we have 7 of them under construction right now, and 5 of them completed and sold. And we have everything that we're building, we already have sold. So once it's built, it's off our rolls. It's costing us between 120 and 128,000 to build it. We're selling them for between 40 and 47,000. And then the FHL bank, like I mentioned, it subsidizes the difference. So we needed to do that because, like I already mentioned, the housing stock for people with disabilities wasn't there. So now we're building 100% wheelchair accessible homes. From there, where do we go? A different slide. Why I decided to start growing hemp, because we're a disability rights organization. One, I think it'll create some jobs for the farmers. It'll give them an alternative crop. Then we decided, well, we're going to go ahead and decorticate this crop, and we're going to find end users. There's so many uses for it. I couldn't even begin to elaborate on all of them. We've collaborated with a number of organizations. The Hempwood out of Paducah, Kentucky. The farmers last year, 2019 was miserable. What you see him holding is pretty much our entire yield from 4 acres. And myself, my partner, and Lori Daitner and her husband were the ones that we went out and handpicked it. So, I mean, it was miserable in 2019. We planted the one variety, and this year in 2020, we planted 4 varieties, and our yield was, I want to say, 1,000 times better than last year. So, I mean, we did our due diligence thanks to Lori, and we're learning a lot about it. I think we're learning every day. In this year, we're going to have, well, I'm lost. This year we're gonna grow 40 acres, or I'm not gonna call them test acres. I'm hoping we can actually sell the product this year. But we're gonna grow 40 acres in a variety of different varieties. I'm lost. I'm sorry.
We're gonna expand the program this year.
We're expanding the program this year, and we are gonna bring some kind of a decorticating equipment into Western Pennsylvania. We've collaborated with Hempwood. Well, you can see who all the people we've collaborated with. I think that's one of the big things that's going to put us above everybody else. Is we're collaborating with as many organizations as we possibly can to learn as much as we can possibly learn. We recently purchased a small house on Lower East Side of Newcastle and Lawrence County that we got a USDA grant to remodel the house with using hempcrete, and we're getting involved with Greg, no, not Greg Wilson, but the hempcrete.
Who's the guy from Hemp? Lloyd?
Cameron McIntosh.
Cameron McIntosh from Americhanvre. And they're going to be redoing that house with the hempcrete, and we're also using the hemp wood product that was made out of our our hemp materials this year.
There you go. Okay. Oh, I apologize. You have the site to the side. Hemp wood, hemp wool, hemp texture are going to be.
Yeah, well,
some
they can read
participants.
that.
Okay.
The whole point here is that we've collaborated with numerous organizations. Penn State, Ohio State, Parsons School of Design, they're all on that slide. And what we've decided to do is put the decortication equipment in an area that we have access to a 200-mile radius of end users. Pennsylvania has one of, or actually the largest cracker plant in the world, located in Beaver County, and it's all based around the plastics manufacturing companies. So we figure, and they're using hemp in plastics. In
Manufacturing. Okay. Treated.
what we're looking at is a decorticating equipment from
Treated.
Cretus, which is located in
Belgium.
Belgium. Thank you.
Yes.
And we pretty much decided that's the equipment that we're going to bring in. We believe that it'll fit, it'll meet all the needs for many different industry uses of the product. And absolutely in this endeavor, we welcome all the investors, and we're going to provide all the opportunities to collaborate. And we thank you. If you're interested, please contact Lori Daitner, and her email address is ldaitner@donservice.org, or her phone number is 724-856-4134. Thank you.
Chris, thanks so much for that presentation. A lot of good and interesting work going on there. We're going to shift gears now. Our next presenter is going to be Cameron McIntosh, President, Principal Owner of Americhanvre LLC, which Chris mentioned in his presentation. I'll remind people in the session, once again, if you have any questions about anything the presenters are referencing, talking about, or about the session topic in general, please write it in the chat box, and we'll put it to the panel once the presentations are finished. Cameron's the owner of a Americhanvre cast hemp, full service hempcrete installer and supplier of raw materials for hempcrete building out of Allentown, PA. He's also the director at large on the board of directors for the United States Hemp Building Association. He's also the Hemp Local Supply Chain Coalition coordinator for the Philadelphia-based nonprofit All Together Now Pennsylvania, led by activist and restaurateur Judy Wicks. Cameron, please take the stage and tell us about your work.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much, Aaron. And cheers, Chris and Lori. Very much looking forward to our work out in the western part of the state with Don Services, wonderful organization. So again, my name is Cameron McIntosh. I'm the owner of Americhanvre Hemp. We are a full service, licensed and insured installer of hempcrete biocomposite insulation and walling material here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. You can see there in the image, we're working with spray applied technology from France, distributed here by our colleagues in Idaho, Hempitecture. We're also a supplier of building grade hemp hurd and also technical fibers. And we're also a producer of a line of cast hemp decor for interior and exterior use. So what is hempcrete for those of you who don't know? Hempcrete is a non-structural biocomposite insulation and walling material made from the inner woody core of the fiber industrial hemp stalk specifically, and a lime-based binder. It's a highly performant acoustic and thermal insulation with considerable thermal mass and low thermal inertia. It is mold, mildew, rot, pest, and fire resistant, in addition to being sustainable, renewable, and carbon sequestering. Can be cast in place or in situ, as in the image behind the slide here, or spray applied, as you saw before, or precast into modular components. So we are working with a quality hurd. What makes our hurd building grade? It happens to be from France, from the oldest farmer-owned industrial hemp fiber collective in Europe. They have 30 years of experience in growing, processing, and distributing fiber industrial hemp products. Again, what makes it building grade? The granulometry, the distribution of the particles and their sizes, the density, the moisture content, and the absence of excess dust and fiber, as well as the overall cleanliness of the material. And you can see there in the image the difference between the two. The one on the left is easy to make, but not building quality. As you can see, there's lots of visible microbiota left over from the retting process. And the one on the right is the Cannabat product that we've chosen to work with. So it's a good visual representation of the difference between the two. Again, the Cannabat, we're importing and distributing here in Pennsylvania. It is a product that has been certified by a third-party professional body in France called the Americhanvre, certified as building grade based on those metrics that I mentioned earlier. It's delivered to us in 44-pound or 20-kilogram compression bales. Each of these bales produces about 5.5 cubic feet of hempcrete. We're retailing this material for between 52 and 64 cents per pound, depending on the volume, obviously. And again, working with this product due to its exceptional quality and consistency. It is the same every time. We can get shipping containers of it, as soon as we like, and there's no mystery to where it's coming from or how it's been processed. Again, year-round availability. To date, we've brought in about 150,000 pounds of hemp hurd from this collective. So how do we do that here? In the background here, you can see some images from the 2019 growing season. It was a hemp fiber trial held by Coexist Build at their Maiden Creek farm in Blandon, PA. They grew Futura 75, seeded at about 50 pounds per acre on a 2-acre test plot. We got it to about 6 to 8 feet on average, and then partnered with New Holland. Drew and Anna of Coexist partnered with New Holland to bring the crop down, and the seed and support was provided by the National Hemp Association and the PA Hemp Industry Council. So you can see there, that's about 2 weeks after we planted it. So it is planted considerably denser than you would plant a cannabinoid variety of cannabis. That's after about 2 weeks again. So that's probably about 3 weeks in, and it's about up to my elbow. That is my arm in the picture. And there's Drew towards the end of the season. Again, the owner of Coexist Build at Maiden Creek Farm there. in his hemp crop. So you can see how quickly it grows. And finally, here's a picture of, I believe that's Mr. Brad Wenger right there in the background, and Drew recording for posterity. And then also we have Jeff Whaling of the National Hemp Association all out to see if this stock piece of equipment that New Holland had, I'll go back to that really quickly. That is a disc vine. It's a stock piece of equipment that is actually typically intended for hay. What makes it conducive to taking down hemp is the fact that it has a roller breaker hidden up underneath the big wheels there in the middle. So it cuts the crop, sucks it through the roller breaker, breaks it in a couple places, which opens it up and makes it easier to round bale, which is the final image here. Lovely image of a roll belt 450 New Holland equipment again, which was used to collect the crop after retting. So the production process I touched on briefly begins with cultivar selection and intended end use. You have to know what you would like to do with your hemp to pick the correct cultivar, and it also matters where you are in the world. The planting window, field prep, and seeding plan also very important for understanding, how to grow this crop correctly, as well as harvest window and technique. Again, all dependent on your end use, your intended end use, but relatively similar. And then the retting process plan. So once you allow the crop to grow, you harvest it and you lay it in the field, and you allow for a microbial separation to begin breaking down the bond between the hurd and the fiber. That's important. It's the first step in decortication, which Chris was talking about earlier. So once it's been retted, it can be round baled, collected, stored properly, and delivered to the facility for decortication and processing, which you can see in the background. There is an image of a decorticator separating fiber from hurd. So how do we build lasting agricultural infrastructure around fiber industrial hemp here in the state? In my opinion, it is best done with farmer-owned cooperatives, as it was done in Europe with the producer that we're currently getting it from. Works really well. The farmers are the ones that have to learn how to do this. You can buy the equipment, but if the farmers don't know what cultivar to use or how to grow it, that equipment will sit. So we also have the looming carbon tax credit trade coming online here soon. So farmers will be able to sell the carbon tax credits that they're gaining growing this crop to other industries who have a carbon tax liability that they need to offset. Innovative end user development is key. It's critical. We've got a lot of it going on in the state. My company is one example. Local self-reliance, working within the state. Everyone in this group, in this panel discussion actually has worked together before. We're all Pennsylvania people. We're working with Don's services in the western part of the state. Josh and I, Susquehanna, have worked together on a couple different things. So, working with your local community and really pushing your local farmers to learn how to do this crop, and then also having an answer for them on who's going to take it, who's going to process it, and who's going to use it. So we also in this state are fortunate to have very robust now full hemp permit program held by the Department of Agriculture. They've also recently begun an advisory board held by the Department of State, by the Department of Agriculture, to get the input of producers and processors here in the state. So that has really helped as well. Grants and subsidies, we're also working with all the people that I mentioned previously to pool together and bring in grant money to train farmers and ranchers. So lots of things that we can do that we're already doing here in Pennsylvania, I would hope would continue. Where should you put your money if you're looking to invest in lasting agricultural infrastructure here in the state? In the hands of the farmers. Again, the farmers are the ones that need to learn how to grow this crop. There's Josh standing in his field this year, his grain crop, which, as you can see, actually got to a respectable height of 6 to 8 feet, opening the door for the potential to have a dual use for the crop. Without going too deep, the dual use theory is a little bit harder in practice than it is in theory, but it's certainly possible. So put your money in the state of Pennsylvania. Again, invest locally. Hemp stands to be local. It'll be just like any other commodity, agricultural commodity. It won't make sense to ship it all over the place. Local hemp startups, many small companies starting up around the fiber industrial side of the plant. Without their demand, the farmers will have nowhere to go with their crop. So harvesting and processing equipment. We're fortunate to have New Holland Agriculture focused on hemp. Their farming equipment is not cheap. It doesn't matter who you get it from. Fortunately, New Holland has a face turned towards hemp, so they understand what's going on. But again, encouraging farmers to band together and buy that equipment is definitely a good use of capital. And then obviously research and development for replacement of any petrochemical based product, really starting with plastics, I think is definitely a good direction, and one that you heard before that Don is pursuing. Wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the other work that we're doing here in the state. All Together Now Pennsylvania is a nonprofit, again, led by Philadelphia activist and restaurateur Judy Wicks, who is here in the crowd today. We are focused on uniting the rural and urban communities behind the common values of local self-reliance and people and planet over profit. Again, our core values are based on local economies and local self-reliance. You can see there an image in the background of the Industrial Hemp Coalition. We've rebranded a bit. We've been meeting on a quarterly basis for about a year and a half now to discuss, industry specific issues, to network, and to work together. So please check out the website, alltogethernowpa.org, and sign up to be a coalition member with us. And also the U.S. Hemp Building Association. Again, I'm a director at large for this young organization. We're a professional trade organization focused on specifically hemp building materials. Our short-term goal is to achieve full ASTM and ICC code approval for hempcrete and other hemp building materials, which again will really help with the demand for these materials. The organization is comprised of builders, architects, engineers, and generally enthusiasts. So again, another great organization for you to check out and participate in. U.S. Hemp Building Association can be found at ushba.org. And just a little photo roll here of some of our projects. This was a spray applied, actually the first hempcrete home in the country to be spray applied with our colleagues Hempitecture out in Missouri. This is an image of our hemp house on wheels, which some of you may have seen at the trade shows, built at the Coexist farm along with Coexist Build. This is the hemp house on wheels before we put the skin on. So again, you can see hempcrete is non-structural. We still have a structural frame in here, and it is taking the place of almost everything else in the wall. There's a nice finished shot of our hemp house on wheels. This thing has over 3,000 miles on it. It's been to New York City, to the Javits Center for the CWCB Expo, as a guest of the National Hemp Association, as part of an exhibit on fiber industrial hemp, which is the image you're seeing here. We've also had it out in Illinois to the Farm Progress Show, again, as the guest of the National Hemp Association. And that's actually where we connected with New Holland. So another shot here of a retrofit. So this is an existing building where we used hempcrete in the walls to insulate. Really nice project. And then actually, this is where I'm sitting today. You can see behind me the hempcrete walls here at the Hempstead in Stroudsburg, PA, with one of our All Together Now coalition members, Eric Titus White, again of the Hempstead. So And finally here is an architectural mock-up that we made for an upcoming project. You can see we've got everything from the foundation wall, the subfloor, the framing, and the roofing material all represented here, as well as a cut section to show you where and how the frame interacts with this material. So sort of a living architectural detail that we did in advance of a project to show the code enforcement office what the hell we were talking about. And that's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Cam. Our next presenter is going to be Josh Leidecker. Josh is the owner of Susquehanna Hemp Company. He's a lifelong entrepreneur. His current projects include an oilseed mill, Susquehanna Mills, a real estate holdings company, Jassett Holdings, and Susquehanna Hemp Company, whose present objective is to build industrial hemp aggregation and develop a supply chain for Pennsylvania's industrial hemp crop yields. Folks in the audience, I'd just like to remind you again, any questions you have, drop them in the chat. We'll get the panelists to address them once the presentations are done. And you should also keep your eye on the chat because some questions have already been answered by other people in the audience. Okay, I'll hand it over here to Josh. Thanks for being here, Josh.
Hey, thanks, guys. Just give me a second to try to get there we go. Again, hey, it's Josh from Susquehanna Mills here in Muncie, Pennsylvania. Honored to be on this part of this group and kind of share some of the work that we've done in grain specific processing, hemp grain for oil and meal uses. So from the beginning, we have been engaged in hemp from like 2017. We were one of the first 13 to plant here in Pennsylvania. And we started with the lowest hanging fruit for us was we had an oilseed mill. We currently make canola and sunflower oil, locally grown crops. And we were excited to start growing a potential other crop that could be processed in a similar way and add into the food system. So we've been engaged in cannabinoid production as well as fiber production all the way from the beginning. And we're continuing to work on developing markets, developing relationships, product lines, trying to find as many outlets for hemp as possible. And for our specific use, we've been working on oil products as well as the meal, the leftover residual after processing. So this year in particular, we did a pretty good clip of dual purpose crop. We grew Anka, which is a genetic from Ontario, from Valley Bio. And what we were trying to accomplish was harvesting a grain crop off the top and then coming behind and harvesting a fiber crop. Again, as Cameron had mentioned, it's not exactly ideal because you're taking from both sides of the equation when you're trying to dual crop. You're cutting the hemp at a much later date, which doesn't give you the best quality of fiber. And you're waiting a little bit longer on the grain so you can harvest all of the grain effectively and get the grain brought in. Interesting thing to note about the grain, this is probably one of the hardest things to do with hemp because the plant continues to grow and continues to flower. When you harvest the grain, you're going to have a mixture of moisture contents and maturities on that stalk. So part of harvesting this crop that's very, very important is to be able to condition the grain almost immediately after it's cut out of the field. This year in particular, it was a pretty dry period of time. So we were able to cut it at much, much drier than normal. Most of the grain that we took off was around 12%. But in the years prior to this year, it's been in the neighborhood of 18 and 20% moisture. And that's very dangerous for an oilseed crop. There's a lot of energy in the oil, and when you have a high moisture condition, it has a tendency to create an exothermic reaction and start to heat. And it's actually pretty dangerous. It can actually create enough heat to catch on fire and make a real problem for someone. Also, from our perspective, we want to get that grain conditioned as quickly as possible, because then that will give us the very highest quality feedstock for our oilseed processing. There's a picture of our combine. So that's a row crop header, a John Deere row crop header connected to a New Holland, an older New Holland combine. It was not without challenges this year. We tried this approach. This failed. Originally, we had to take this back off and make some other modifications to it. And then we were able to cut, this is a 30-acre farm we're sitting on here. We were able to cut most of that grain off of there without a whole lot of issues to the combine. But what happened much, much later, since this is a dual rotor setup, this combine, the operator ended up, I don't know, 100 acres later through some soybeans, found where we still had residue, retted male plants that were hung up on some of the bearings and some of the shafts on the inside of the machine, really caused some damage. So harvesting it later is really problematic. So that what we do with that grain, then we bring that into the mill, we process it, we separate the oil from the protein, and then the protein can then be further processed into a couple of things. It can be used in a pelletized form, and that's added into animal feed. We've done some work with chicken rations. We've done some research projects in the private sector as well as university trials utilizing that plant protein. It also can be processed a little further into a protein powder or a flour for adding into baking. If you've heard of Hempsel pretzels, we were able to supply Sean with enough hemp flour last year to produce all of his pretzels here in Pennsylvania. So a great situation. We're also working with a pasta company from North Carolina and another pretzel company, more of a snack inclusion, kind of a feed flavoring additive on the outside. And that's one of the projects we're working on collectively with another snack food company. So that'll be a co-branded sort of opportunity. And then, of course, the oil has multiple uses. We sell the oil directly to consumer. We have a few restaurants. We have a few companies that utilize it in soap, some other things. So pretty exciting there. Oh, I think I'm already done. So everybody wants to use hemp, but there's no infrastructure in Pennsylvania to use this. So we're trying to get it from the field into the hands of the companies and businesses that want to use it. So I think it's really important that we develop sort of an aggregation point in Pennsylvania to bring that grain in and then get it processed to where it can be utilized originally. So a few other things, I guess, is a little bit more of a review here, things that we've worked on. We're currently engaged in a feed trial with Delaware Valley University. That's working on, we have 3 trials there. We have a small ruminant trial there. We have a lactating dairy cow trial working there, and then also an equestrian trial. They did just complete the equestrian trial for palatability. We're going to move on to another trial at that location. Kreider Farms, if you guys have heard about those, it's one of the mainline industrial companies or agricultural companies in Pennsylvania that's really been very committed to the expansion of the use of hemp. And we started with them about 2 years, an initial trial for laying hens, and then that expanded into a larger whole house trial where they, I think, received some grant funding to get GROTS certification for using hemp protein in a chicken ration. And then we're also working currently with our local technical school, mainly on cannabinoid varietals. They were looking from the horticulture end. So we were able to integrate with those guys this year, provided them with some genetics, worked with them, did a few tours here. Kind of interesting seeing a technical school really kind of latch on and want to get involved. We're also working with them currently on plastics manufacturing, as well as they have a a large group of construction degrees, and specifically a concrete degree that we're trying to integrate some of the work that's happening at Penn College with that. So so what we're currently involved in and what we're planning. So hemp grain processing, we're looking at doing a standalone expansion of our facility. And then we want to include, again, that aggregation point where we're going to be able to aggregate fully retted hemp fiber, be able to process that fiber into whatever's required to get it ready to go to market. Our involvement with the milling of the seeds and preparation for that for further processing and developing like-minded businesses together. And then we're also heavily invested and heavily involved in the steering committee of the Department of Ag, which has been an interesting journey, trying to help the Department of Ag understand some of the challenges that we have as farmers and some of these challenges to overcome as an industry. So no one knows what's next. We don't really know either, but we're going to continue to work on it, continue to develop opportunities, and we're just going to keep going. That's what it is. So I think that's all for me. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Josh. Again, folks, if you have questions for the presenters, drop them in the chat. People have been putting them in, and the presenters have been giving answers in there already. So that's great. We have one more presenter today. It's Brad Wenger from New Holland. Brad has helped lead New Holland into the hemp industry and has met with hundreds of hemp growers and processors, learning what the processors and growers want to do and helping determine what agricultural equipment can help solve those problems. The New Holland brand offers a full line of ag equipment for growers of nearly any crop type. So without further ado, Brad, please take the stage and share with us a little bit about your work in this sector.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. You guys hopefully can see my screen I'm presenting here. Good to be with you this afternoon. I am born and raised here in the state of Pennsylvania, and love being part of Lancaster County here. So today I'm representing New Holland Agriculture, and we kind of started getting into this hemp project back in late 2017 when we started getting some calls from customers asking if we had any equipment to help them out with hemp, which we didn't know much and weren't very educated on the crop at the time, but we got ourselves educated pretty quickly and found a lot of great things out, and I'd like to share some of those with you here today. My name is Brad Wenger. I'm a marketing manager here at New Holland, and we are located here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as our North American headquarters. We are a global agricultural equipment leader, and we are a subsidiary of C&H Industrial, which is a publicly traded company. You can see on the screen here just a couple examples of our equipment if you're not familiar, but we make and sell large-scale industrial equipment for agricultural and construction use. Like I said, we've been located here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and this year we're actually celebrating our 125-year anniversary of being founded and born here in New Holland, PA. And we're very proud of that. So we're a global leader in hay and forage, as well as small grains. And then what you would call hemp, in my opinion, is a small grain forage type crop. So naturally, this crop lends itself to some of our strengths, which is why we were very motivated to get involved and help farmers with this crop. As some of the others have mentioned before, the farmers know how to grow crops. They've been doing it all their lives. They know crop rotation. They know different soil types and growing conditions. And the easiest thing we can do as an industry is help them figure out what the best hybrids and seeds are for their areas, give them the right equipment to use, and then create the supply chain and the demand to demand them putting it in the ground, right? Because if we don't have an end use, there's no use in them going out and planting this. So for all the farmers on the phone, on the meeting with us today, be excited, but don't go plant anything necessarily until you have a contract of where you're going with it, because could be a waste of your investment if you don't have an end use lined up for it. New Holland's built a couple of partnerships here in the last 2 years. We've been working a lot with National Hemp Association. If you're just trying to get into hemp and learn more about it, National Hemp Association is a great place to go. They can give you a lot of advice and information. And they're also an advocacy group in DC, working to make sure that farmers have the ability to grow the crop, grow it without getting arrested or any of those type of legality things that are still ongoing within politics right now, as they're trying to get the THD content raised over 1%. And thought is it maybe could go higher than that, even just to keep farmers safe and abiding by the rules of the law. And then Penn State College of Agricultural Sciences have been a great help to us as well. We've been working with them and sharing information back and forth since they've been getting involved with this crop as well. So it's been great to work with both these organizations, as well as Cameron, Drew at Coexist, and everyone else who we've been working with here and been in touch with at the NOCO and some of the other hemp events. This year in New Holland, PA, on our facility, we actually have a 120-acre working farm as part of our headquarters. And so the end of 2019, we did some planning and decided we wanted to really take this more seriously. In 2019, we had helped Cameron and Drew with some testing and some equipment use, as well as some other local farmers in York, Pennsylvania. But we wanted to spend a little bit more time really educating ourselves on it, trying some new things in this crop. And we thought no better way to do that than do it on our own farm. So we planted 15 acres. We had 2 grain variety and 2 fiber varieties that we planted. And then you can see in the picture here to the bottom left, we were able to harvest some of the seed with a New Holland combine, which like mentioned before by Josh, is a twin rotor combine. It's designed and is actually proven in the Guinness Book of World Records as one of the best in the world for small grains. And I think those tests are done on soybeans specifically, but hemp is very similar to canola and things like of that nature that you find up in Western Canada, where we have a very strong presence as well. And we actually have a customer who's been harvesting hemp grain in Eastern Ontario for 10 years now. It's a bone stock machine, CX New Holland combine with shell-borne internal components, and it's worked very well for them. So we're excited to see some customers have already beat us to the punch and have a lot of experience with this, and we're just following up with some of our newer equipment now to ensure that it does work and works well for our customers. So, and then on the fiber side, for the handling of that, the fiber crop itself, laying it down with a disc mower conditioner. We have pinching rollers in there. We call them conditioning rolls. You can get those in rubber or steel rolls, and you can adjust how tight you have them and the pressure and everything to decide how much you want to kind of break open the stem of the crop to let it dry out faster if desired. And we played around with those settings quite a bit, both here and when we worked with Cameron and Drew up in Allentown, Pennsylvania, to kind of feel out the best settings to operate in this crop. So it worked out really well. We did run into a little bit of drought early in June that created some weed issues later in the year, but overall the crop grew. We had some between, I guess, 6-7 foot tall in some areas, and then some areas probably around 4 foot tall in the field. But overall, we'd call it a success, and we got to learn a lot from this experience. I do have some other pictures and videos. If you guys want to take a look at them at your convenience, you guys can go do that and find us online at betterhempharvest.com. We have download tips, brochures. You can watch some of our hemp videos. If you need, if you already have a New Holland piece of disc mower conditioner around baler, you can go on there and print out a sheet that'll actually tell you how to configure the machine for optimal performance in this crop. So some tools on there for you to go check out. And then also, if you're not from in the area, you can go to newholland.com and even find a dealer near you that you can talk with, get more information about the equipment. Our dealers are very friendly, very easy to work with, and they'd be happy to come out to the land you're going to be raising the crop on and help you kind of plan and figure out what equipment you need and how to get the job done. So that's we work through a series of dealers across North America, and we have a base around 1,000 locations between US and Canada that we work with. So appreciate everyone's time here today. Again, I have some other pictures and videos that you guys can access online, or if you guys have follow-up questions. We did get into some CBD as well as fiber. The CBD side is much more, while it's a little bit farther ahead in the amount of people planting it, I'd say it's still much more in its infancy as far as large-scale production and how that's going to pan out, whether it's going to go indoors or if there's going to be more specialized equipment designed for handling the CBD. I call it looks like a Christmas tree style hemp. And then just a few comments on the dual header or dual purpose crop, like Josh and Cameron had mentioned. I do think it's interesting what they've done in Europe in some of their small fields using that dual header system. But I think when you look across North America, and we have much more wide open fields, much more lot larger growing area, and very specialized climates in certain areas. I think you won't see the usage of dual headers in the US as much as what we see in Europe. And I think you'll see more dedicated acreage to whether it's grain or whether it's pure fiber or whether it's pure CBD components that the farmer is trying to get out of the crop. So the other aspect to that is that when you have a dual header system, you can only utilize up to 20 feet because of the weight of those two headers on front of a combine. Whereas if you go with a wide draper header, which is what we use for small grain handling and cutting small grain, you can go up to 45, 50 foot wide with one of those and be much more efficient and effective in your harvest, in your harvesting. So that's a lot of the reasons why I don't think you'll see a lot of the dual header systems being incorporated here in North America as much as they are in Europe, where the fields are smaller and a lot of different variables going into play there. So just some thoughts from me, and appreciate being on the call here today with all of you and some of the other experts. Look forward to your questions.
All right, thanks, Brad. So yeah, now is the time we'll do a question and answer conversation. I've got a few from the chat box, and please continue to put them in there. Looks like there's a poll coming up on the screen. Please do that poll so that people running the summit know exactly who's attending and can do the programming in alignment with that in the future. Okay, here's one that was in the chat box that I don't think got addressed: is any quantification of the criteria for building quality hemp herd? That might be Cam or.
Yes, we have, excuse me, we have a set of criteria. mostly derived from that French organization that I mentioned before, the Construire and Chambre, which if you look that up on Google, you'll find it. They have lots of information on their website, including a few slide decks on how they grade and vet a source of herd that's been supplied by someone, to be certified as building grade. So, and they have in that presentation, although it's all in French, they do have some of the metrics that they go by. You want less than 17% moisture content. The granulometry is, less than 2% falls through a certain sieve size. So that's how they're gauging the dust content. And also the color quality, visible color quality of the hemp herd is also laid out in that package. So we do, with people that we're working with, including, Don and anyone else that's looking to do decortication that's a partner of ours. I do have a more specific set of metrics from specifically the Cannabat herd. But again, that information is public on the Construire and Chambre website. You can look that up. And get an idea of how they're vetting a herd for building. But the most important aspect really is the granulometry, the size and distribution of the particles, and the absence of excess dust and fiber. You want less than 3% fiber in your herd and vice versa. So that is steps that are taken beyond the decortication process. So the things that Chris was mentioning, the decortication unit is only one portion of the scenario to get to a building grade product, which for those of you that might be thinking of hemp herd for animal bedding, a building quality hemp herd is actually a lower quality than an animal bedding grade hemp herd based on the dust content. Dust in an environment, in a stall or a stable, or even in a cage or an enclosure, dust, microbiota, all those things are bad for the animals. So the company that I get my herd from actually does produce a bedding quality hemp herd that is actually taken to a higher extent of cleanliness and held to a higher standard. So it's a little bit counterintuitive. I hear a lot of chatter about just chopping the stalks up and using them for animal bedding. Well, yes, you can do that, but it may not be a benefit because you might be getting more respiratory issues than you would have with your normal bedding material, which is again the issues to watch for in a stable environment or in a an enclosure of some kind. So I'll type the website, the Construire and Chambre website here into the chat for everyone, and you guys can go check that out.
Yeah, although I think it's available just through the speaker list with the summit. Someone else, Marcy, I believe, asked for your contact information, Cameron, and commented that they live in a floodplain and wanted to use hempcrete, I'm assuming, for product for parts of the house that need to be redone from flooding.
Yeah, I reached out to Marcy privately and gave her my contact info. But just to answer that question, it's Cam,
you went to mute.
This pesky Zoom thing, huh? We still haven't figured it out. It's the term hempcrete is misleading in a lot of ways, not the least of which is the knee-jerk reaction to compare it to concrete. It's not structural, it can't be below grade, and it can't be in any situation where it's exposed to constant moisture. I.e. like below grade for a paving type of application or for a foundation. That is not to say that it wouldn't help in a flood-prone area, because it's very good at if it does get saturated, like say you had a house in a floodplain and the walls got saturated, hempcrete would do a better job by far than a traditional building envelope in drying itself out, because it's vapor permeable And lime itself is inherently good at balancing, the humidity and the moisture that it's exposed to. So hempcrete would recover from a flood event quite well, although it would not be good to use in a place where you have a constant water issue, like in a leaky basement, or somewhere where you have another kind of water infiltration issue. So it's a great question, though, and again, hempcrete is a terrible term for it, but it's exciting and it gets people wound up, so we're sticking with it for now. But
all right, thanks. Gina, thanks for dropping that message in the chat box about putting your contact information in the Summit website so that people can connect with you. Phil asks, how important to the industry is a well-regulated uniform hemp classification system? And I think we can open that up to anyone on the panel who wants to respond.
I'll just start by saying dramatically important. Setting standards is how we begin. And it's what I've looked to from my European counterparts in my own industry to begin with.
What about in food, Josh? What about in the applications you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of, in conventional agriculture, there's a lot of variance in how grain comes into a facility. And a lot of times there's so much material coming through, they can blend and mix and all of that sort of thing. On the terms of grain, it's very, very important that grain hemp especially be handled incredibly carefully, conditioned immediately, cleaned as quickly as possible, and not allowing that to heat or to mold, because that would then lead to downstream products not being suitable for food production. So, and that's true of all oil seeds. All oil seeds need to be just managed a little carefully. So I think absolutely there needs to be a standard of how this grain needs to be grown and dealt with. And I know when I'm working with contracted growers, especially new growers of either canola or sunflowers, we have to do a tremendous amount of work just to make sure that they understand those challenges and are prepared for them. So I think it is important to create that sort of uniform plan. It needs to be this moisture, this cleanliness, just education, because a lot of people just don't realize the challenges until it's too late. Unfortunately, I was one as well. We had to throw some grain away because we really underestimated the power of oil seeds at high moisture.
I have a couple comments on that. One is the notion of start a rating system at the farm level, allowing only grown in PA hemp would help us standardize the system. I guess one question, there's, we're talking about hemp as building material, hemp as food product. Is there anyone looking at using hemp as textile for clothing, for fiber industry? I know some people, I know some growers who are trying to reinvigorate basically fiber shed, trying to reinvigorate local fabric production. There's a lot of infrastructure challenges. And I'm just curious to ask the panel if they know anyone moving in that direction, or are they themselves thinking about that kind of possibility?
I think everyone has to be because the herd, in my case, the herd is 75 to 80% of the crop, but you're still going to get a fiber harvest if you're harvesting specifically for herd, which nobody does. But it begs, or it strikes at the heart of the issue, which is that without the end users, there is no market for any of these things. So, to the point about, making it so that we're only allowed to use hemp grown in the States, that would be wonderful. Let me preface everything that I've said here today with the fact that I'm keenly interested in getting my hemp herd produced here in the States. It's a multi-level problem, as far as, the farmers having to learn how to grow the crop. someone taking the plunge to buying the, the processing equipment without knowing that there's a market for it. And then people like me who are creating the demand. So yes, we're bringing in products from abroad to create the demand to kickstart an industry. We're priming the pump, if you will. But, specifically, for the fibers, our industry and our infrastructure here in the United States is not based on long line linen, textile production. This is our textile infrastructure I'm talking about. Our textile infrastructure, because of, the cotton gin being invented and cotton presenting itself as an easier crop to grow and harvest and wear, that turned our entire industry away from long line linen production. We're now almost primarily cotton based. So to work hemp into a hemp cotton blend is actually what the big producers, Patagonia, for example, are interested in doing. They want short, well-conditioned fibers that can easily be incorporated into a hemp cotton blend. So anyone that's thinking about growing fiber industrial hemp, you have to, decide what end use you're preparing that fiber for, whether it's a non-woven textile, a long line linen application, or a short fiber application for compounding, or for incorporating into a hemp cotton blend. So I think Chris has a good take on this though as well.
You're muted, Chris, just so you know.
Unmute me.
You're good now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, at first, what we're going to focus on is construction material and plastics. We are interested in learning more about the textiles, and we are pursuing that theoretically. But at this point, we're just talking about it and learning about it. But we do intend to bring in the decortication equipment that would give us the ability to do it.
Great, and I see Heidi Barr chiming in on the chat box, saying that women at Fiber Revolution are close to having long line fiber production operational, and she's working with them to make it happen in the Mid-Atlantic region. So you two might like to connect. Folks,
that's awesome. We know Heidi. Heidi came to our Hempcrete Week workshop. Correct, right? I believe so. I believe Heidi's working with flax, which is a very similar fiber to hemp in terms of durability and the way that it's processed. So there are lots of good synergies there, and hoping that we can get to a point where we have that production capability here again. And they've done a lot there, Heidi, with Fiber Revolution. So very, very cool things going on.
I wanted
please, Josh.
I wanted to mention some projects that we're working on with specifically for paper and non-woven sort of paper towel products. We've got a couple of groups that we've been working on and specifically looking on how to pulp hemp fiber. I spoke mostly about grain, but we're also heavily invested towards developing some fiber with Cameron for the herd, and of course some other items. Concrete reinforcements is something that we're working on here, similar to the Enforce fiber from Canada. Trying to look at developing those markets here, kind of not as the high dollar item, but more of the low hanging fruit that could be tried to scale at a reasonable rate here. But paper is super exciting, and those non-wovens, and we've personally right now have fiber in front of two different organizations, one doing a mechanical pulping process and one doing more of a chemical digestion process. So some exciting things that we're working on to try to find, that big user, that big consumer of short strand hemp. And obviously the end game is clearly clothing and higher end textiles. But I think that's kind of, we have to get to the economy of scale where we have enough of that material to really push that envelope. And it's probably a 4-year, kind of 5-year plan to get there. So.
Yeah, this is Brad. Just wanted to add, there was public news about Patagonia, I believe, this week on their announcement to partner with farms in Colorado for fiber production as well. But they've realized that the infrastructure still doesn't exist and hasn't been brought to the U.S. yet for the fiber processing. So they're taking it actually back to China to process and then bringing it back here to use, based on the news release. And then if you are following in the news, Collective Growth Corporation is trying to pull together some hemp industrial companies to actually help bring some of that infrastructure here to the U.S. And that's absolutely critical, even for a company like New Holland. I mean, we would like to explore how we can utilize hemp in some of our shielding. We do oil, based extrusions, expanded metal at times, and other things like that. And if we can incorporate hemp into some of our lighter side shields and some other components where we can be more sustainable, basically be buying back from the farmers that are purchasing from us, that's important to us and something we'd like to be exploring as well. So all good topics of discussion. If you're an investor out there, I'd highly encourage you to do your due diligence before investing in a decorticator or any processing equipment, infrastructure equipment, because some of that, some people have tried to do that already here in the States, and it's interesting to watch, and I think some of it works. But the problem with what the people who I've seen here in the States are doing is they can handle basically one large square bale an hour, or 1,000 pounds or 2,000 pounds an hour, and a farmer can produce, I don't know, go nuts, 100 or 200 tons a day, right? And how's it got? That's more than one guy with this little processor can process in an entire year. So that's just not scalable or realistic, and we've got to find more realistic solutions to this infrastructure problem.
So we've got a short bit of time left. I wanted to, if anybody has a burning question, I want to invite you to put it in the chat, or if any of the presenters want to address any of the questions or topics that have been brought up to this point, please do. Otherwise, I can throw a last one out to the panel. Give me a moment. Well, I guess I would just ask, a lot of you are moving in multiple directions. And I'm wondering, looking towards 2021, what's something new for you in 2021 that's exciting you? And any one of you can jump in from the panel if you have something. Just unmute.
Okay, 2021, first of all, we're going to grow more test acres. So we're going to continue our education, but we're also getting involved with actually building a house or remodeling a house out of hempcrete and hemp wood. I'm excited about that, and we're still exploring different options of what hemp can be used for. So, I mean, we're looking at paper mills, we're looking at plastics, obviously, but the textiles, it might be a 3 to 5 year plan. Bringing this decortication equipment in, I'm trying to do it within 3 years. Whether I'm going to be able to do it or not, but that's my goal. I wanted to hear so that we can start to learn more about the processes and process the way it should be processed. But it's not necessarily about, it's about learning before we do it. It's about doing our due diligence on how to do these different things. And I'm excited about that.
Great.
Yeah, I'm also very excited for our project in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. In general, everything about this industry excites me. This year, obviously, the damper got put on things with the COVID situation, but very encouraged this year to see sort of proliferation of interest in the fiber side, and lots of the interest and money that had gone to the cannabinoid production is starting to make its way into the fiber industrial side of the game. So in short, I'm excited for every minute of next year. So I think we all are.
Okay. Josh, you have anything you want to chime in with? I think part of it is because it seems like you're doing so many different things. I'm curious what you see a big direction for your interests in 2021.
Well, I think the next frontier is hemp fortification of foods. I think that you're going to see mass adoption from the agricultural feed industry. You're already seeing that with Kreiders. You're already seeing that there was Perry County Land and Cattle did some hemp finished animals there early on. We're currently doing on one of my partner farms. We're doing a trial finishing a group of bison and a group of Angus. I think that the exciting portion of this is in order to get economies of scale in place. I mean, we need adoption for the use of hemp grain feed meals into agriculture and really trying to understand what those meals may contribute to the diet of the animal. I mean, some of the ideas were increased levels of omega-3 since hemp oil and meal is so high in omega-3. We may be able to create a better, healthier steak, maybe better tasting eggs. I mean, I'm not sure what the future holds, but if you can, I mean, put this into perspective, I mean, it wasn't terribly long ago that soybeans didn't exist. And I think that, no, they existed. They just didn't exist on the scale they exist today. If soybean meal and oil wasn't broadly accepted into the food system and the feeding of these animals, I don't think you'd see as many acres as we see in the United States today of soybean production. So I think that's really exciting as the approval of hemp goes into the food system as value-added feed, meat products, dairy, all of those natural, those steps. I think that you'll see, you'll really see this economy of scale make sense. We have been approached by a couple of feed producers, and they've been talking about some significant numbers. I mean, we were approached on a major feed producer here in Pennsylvania that was looking for 10 or 20 tons of hemp meal a week. So that's a little large for us, but that's part of our plan to do a standalone hemp processing facility. And we would love to be able to grow that all here in Pennsylvania. Cameron and I have talked about this in depthly. We may have to just import grain and produce it here in Pennsylvania, utilize it in Pennsylvania to build the demand, and then we can then contract farmers and make sure that we have all of that marketing in place to kind of continue that thing along. And I think the movement on fiber as well, it's going to take a long time to get farmers to really be able to produce that high quality fiber. So I think we have to develop some lower end grades of fiber currently, so we can try to just start that process. It's going to take a while to get that animal bedding grade or that super high end. The guys in France, that collective in France, have been doing this for 30 years. I mean, to think that we're going to do it in a year is pretty tough. I think we'll do it faster. We'll learn from the mistakes that they made, but I mean, we're going to continue to grow. We're probably going to back out of as much cannabinoid for next year. And really, we focused about 80% of our energy this year on grain and fiber. And I think we'll continue maybe doing a little bit more next year.
Well, thank you so much, everyone on the panel. There were a couple questions that came up in the last few minutes, but Cam was on them. So if you posted them, please check out the chat. I want to again thank everybody for the participation of this panel. I think we could give them a round of applause over Zoom. Before we leave, I'd like to take a quick moment to recognize our top level sponsors and partners for this year's Pennsylvania Hemp Summit: Lancaster Farming, King's Agri-Seeds, the Pennsylvania Agricultural Business Development Center, and Air Products. In the session surveys, please fill out the survey for this session. Networking is a key feature of the summit. Our platform will remain open for 30 days after this event. Recordings of the sessions will be available next week on the platform. Continue to use this platform to connect with one another and make plans for the in-person summit we hope and expect in 2021. Thanks for attending, everyone.